So we've already dealt with selecting the DOM elements here, right? We talked about just selecting by class name. Remember, class name will return a what? Array of the corresponding elements with a particular class name, right? And then this will return all the elements with a particular div name in the document. And then if I go to the ID selector here, this will return a particular element with this ID here specified in the argument. So now let's just talk about the more modern approach, which is using query selectors. So let me just simplify all of this and just remove all of this and get a clear script tag now. Start from scratch. Now, a query selector is basically a very powerful method for selecting DOM elements, and we are using CSS selectors. You remember what CSS selectors were like. So for example, for a tag name, you just go div, right? And then you just put some styles here for CSS selector. Remember your CSS. And if you wanted to, for a class selector, you just go, so class name here. Class name, you have to have this period here. This indicates that it's a class name. And then you might put some styling in the style tag here, for example. And then you put the styles here to style that particular class name. And for ID, of course, you put a hash or a pound, depending on where you live. They call this different names, right? So hash some element, right? Some element will be elements ID, and then you put all your styling inside here. So now in JavaScript, we have a query selector method, which basically allows us to select based on the class name, the tag name, and the ID. So let me just show you how this works. So we're going to start with the query selector. So it's very simple here. We just say first div, for example, first div, and we have to say let first, of course, let the first div equal to document dot query selector. Again, notice that this method is in camel case, as a lot of these methods are that we've touched upon. And we go div, and I'm just going to console.log that first div, okay? First div in the following way. Now let's save this and let's refresh. There you go. So it just selects the container div here. Remember that this will always select the very first element that matches the selector when we're using query selector. So for example, if I wanted to select a paragraph here, I have 3 paragraphs, but it will only select the first paragraph, right? Paragraph C selects the very first element here, right? If I wanted to select all of the elements, I have to say query selector, and then I have to say all. So query selector all. Note this notation, and if you're selecting all of them, well, it has to be stored in an array naturally, right? So let me refresh now. There we go. It's an array. It's a node list. It's an array of 3 elements here. 1, 2, 3. If I wanted to say style the second paragraph, make it a different background color, make it a different font size, I could just say first div. This is the name of our variable. It's not user friendly, of course. It should be named something else, but for illustrative purposes here, let's say first div. Remember that it's an array, so you start from 0. 0 will be the first one. 1 will be the second one. 2 will be the third one. So we go 2 here. You go 1 here, rather. 1, and then we go style. X is the style object. Then we go background color, American spelling, and then we go blue, for example, or let's just say light blue. If that's a valid color, let's see what happens now. There we go. So now it's light blue here, as you can see. And what if I wanted to change the font? I can just go here, first div.style, font family, camel case, equals, let's just go Forte again. Forte in the following way. Now let's refresh. There we go. You could also change other properties. Remember that to find all the properties here, let me just remind you once again, console.log. You go first div, for example, .style, for example. And this will show you all the properties that you need to know. You can also look at the documentation. right, and how you go about accessing these and using these. So for example, border image, column fill, column gap, contain, content, display, flex, right, so forth and so on. So these are all the CSS styles that you can place, that you can manipulate here. Margin, mask, offset, overlay, padding, page, right, all of this stuff, right? So yeah, so you can just change all of these styles here as you wish, and if you already know your CSS, it should be a piece of cake. So thank you very much.